There you go. Thank you.
It's sorted.
Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Audit and Standards Committee on the 26th of July. Before it can proceed, it is my duty as Chairman of Harbour District Council to request nominations for Chairman and Vice Chairman. Accordingly, now I ask for a nomination for the Chairman, and I will need a seconder as well. Have we any nominations for a Chairman? Councillor Bateman.
Yes, I'll nominate Councillor Gare as chair.
Thank you. And have we got a seconder for the nomination? Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Page, you're happy to second? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any more nominations for the chair? No. Okay. Accordingly then, just a show of hands, please, for the decision. Thank you very much. Carried. I declare that Councillor Gare is duly elected as chairman, and I ask Councillor Gare to come to the chairman's seat. Thank you. Oh, and on to vice chair.
Vice chair.
Yes. Sorry, everyone. We need a vice chair as well.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I'll do it. Sometimes we need a vice chair and sometimes we don't. Okay, do we have any nominations for vice chair? Councillor Bateman.
I nominate Councillor Nunn as the vice chairman.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. Page, thank you. A show of hands, please, for Councillor Nunn. Thank you. Councillor Nunn, you're a duly elected vice chair.
Okay, that's great. Be best not to have with them. Well, thank you very much for your confidence, everyone. I hope it's justified. Right, okay, item 2 on the agenda, apologies for absence. So I've skipped introductions, I'll come back to the. Right, okay. Apologies for absence.
Councillor Paul, the recent childbirth.
Yep.
Do you have that? Yes, we did have that done.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay, as this is the first meeting of this new committee in the new situation, I know some of you know each other. I'm too tall, okay.
Councillor Mrs. John.
I don't propose to do anything about that. Okay. If we could go around the table then and introduce ourselves, starting with Councillor Asher.
Councillor Asher, Lubbingham Ward. I'm standing in for Councillor Beenan tonight.
It's flashing actually, so I don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
Yeah, could you turn on the kill switch to start on again?
Right.
Just don't take reference, ready. It's just a thing that. No, we don't have to do this is for lunch.
Councillor Johnson, Logan Ward.
Mark Surridge, Mazars, the external auditors.
Rachel Ashley Court, Chief Internal Auditor.
Clive Mason, Interim Deputy Chief Executive Section 151 Officer.
Councillor Gare, that's with East.
Right, Susan, monitoring officer. I'm trying.
Catherine Parsons, Democratic Services Officer. Command.
Councillor Bateman, Mr. Tomordle.
Rosita Page, Fuller Ward.
Right, thank you very much, everyone. We move on then to the draft minutes of the Audit and Standards Committee, 15th of March 2023, which are on pages 3 to 6 in your documents. Also on the table, you will find the answer to a question in those minutes regarding the climate emergency. Didn't fit into the box. Okay. Can I have somebody to propose that those are a true and accurate record of the meeting?
Well, as the only person who was at the meeting,
Sorry?
as the only person who was at the meeting that's currently here as councillor, I'll propose them, and I suppose second them. And
Note
vote
them.
for them.
We can just note them, can't we?
Well, the committee can still agree that they are the accurate record. You do have the attendance of someone who was present, who has assured you that they are an accurate record, so we can actually adopt those if the committee is content to do so.
Right, those in favour of adopting those minutes? And not adopted? Okay. Are there any questions regarding those minutes? No? Okay, declarations of members' interest. Does anyone have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests they wish to declare at this point? Councillor Page.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and congratulations. First of all, can I put down a standard declaration of interest as being a county councillor? So, you know, we'll do that normally. And the other thing is there are quite a few references to the Leicestershire Pension Committee and, you know, the pension fund and writing a letter. So I better declare an interest because I'm the chair of the pension board.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. We move on then to the internal audit annual report for 2022-23. Over to you.
Good evening, councillors. So the first report on the, or main report on the agenda tonight is the internal audit report for 22-23. So in your papers, you have a covering report and then the appendix. To just give you a bit of background, basically this is an annual report that internal audit has to issue. It will be used in due course to inform the annual governance statement for 22-23, and there's some reflection in there about internal audit performance. I'll take this opportunity to hand over to Rachel Ashley-Corn, our Chief Internal Auditor, and she can talk you through the appendix, the main body of the item. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So just taking members briefly through the report as Clive's introduced. So under the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards, as your Chief Internal Auditor, I'm required to provide an annual opinion, which is on the governance, risk and control framework for the council. As Clive said, that should be a key source of assurance for your annual governance statement, and it should be a key source of assurance for this committee as those charged with governance. So working through the full report that's provided for you today as Appendix 1, the opinion itself is set out for you on page 13 of your papers, page 3 of the appendix. So this essentially sets out my opinion, which is given of satisfactory assurance, the definitions for which are provided in section 4.1 of the report. So essentially it recognises that generally the council has a sound system of internal control. We have identified some areas for improvement and made some recommendations during the year. And obviously the detailed findings are provided in the report, but fundamentally we don't have anything that undermines that satisfactory assurance overall. So I will just mention for the previous members of the audit committee, we did approve a new internal audit charter at the meeting in March 2023. And this introduced some new assurance ratings. For the purposes of this report, we are still applying the 22-23 assurance ratings. So everything going forward will be in line with the new internal audit charter, but for consistency, we've applied the same definitions, and those are those provided in section 4.1 of the report. So the box then sets out a breakdown of the opinion in terms of financial control, risk management, wider internal control, and provides you with a little bit of detail around each of those areas. So overall, you did not receive any assurance opinions from us during the year of less than satisfactory assurance. So there's nothing that undermines that overall opinion. And I've provided here a bit of a breakdown in terms of some of those key financial control findings and reflection on risk management arrangements during the year as well. So the rest of the report sets out the basis for that opinion that's in the box. So it's taking you briefly through the report. So table 1 provides you with a breakdown of the key assurance areas and the assurance opinions that we gave in each of those areas during the financial year. And at the bottom is just a comparator with the previous financial year, just so that you have a bit of an idea of how this compares. What I would say is that our audit plans are risk-based. We're no longer in the days where we do the same audits every year, so that we wouldn't expect it to be directly comparable because we are auditing different things. But it's just to give you a general feel of the overall internal control findings over the year. I've then given you a further breakdown in table 3. So mindful that obviously members of the audit committee, audit and standards committee today were not here for all of the previous audit and standard committee meetings throughout 22-23. So we do provide at each of your meetings. I am a regular attendee and I bring in internal progress report at each of the meetings. And this will provide the findings of any of the audits that have been finalised during the period. So all of these audits were reported to the committee during the year. And I've provided the date of the committee meeting that these were reported at as well within table 3. So this provides you with a line by line of each of the audits and the outcomes that we gave as part of our audit review. The rest of the report reflects on other things that inform my opinion. So I obviously take into consideration the materiality of the findings, and that's reflected within the third assurance opinion on each of the audits. So the benefits of the new audit committee members. Each of the audits has received 3 assurance opinions. So the first is in relation to the design of the control environment. So here we're looking at how well controls have been designed, what policies are in place, what procedures have been set up, and how well do they stack up against the risks. We then give an assurance opinion over compliance. So this is really for the committee's benefit so that you can understand where the issue is or where the areas of strength are. So we could have a really strong policy, for example, but it's not being complied with in practice, or vice versa. We could have quite a weak control, but technically it is being applied. So I think it just gives you that understanding of what the nature of the finding is. And that last element of the assurance opinion is in relation to organisational impact. So this is really to put it into context. So we could have a significant weakness, but it may have a low organisational risk overall because it may be very limited in scope. Whereas we may have a key risk area where actually any failings in that area would have a potentially high financial, reputational, safeguarding, any type of risk for the organisation. That would be reflected in that final element of the audit opinion. So as members will see in table 3, there were no opinions of more than moderate. Anything that received a major organisational risk, I would have flagged within my opinion and would be reflected separately. I also take into consideration the actions taken by management in relation to each of the audits. So if we are identifying areas for improvement, if actions are being taken in a timely manner and being completed as we would expect, that gives me assurance over the process that that's working, we're finding things and they're being sorted out in the right time. So again, I've reflected on that within the report. So table 4 provides you with an overview of the actions that were due during the financial year. The first line is those that were implemented, and then the second and third lines relate to those which are overdue as at the 31st of March. We also have, of course, some that were not yet due for implementation, but I've shaded those for you in the table. Just to give members more of a feel for the medium priority actions that were overdue at year end, these are reflected also within table 5 so that you can see the nature of those findings. And I would mention for the committee's benefit that this is something that's covered in further detail in the next agenda item, so I don't intend to go into those actions further at this point. But that's to give you an overview of performance in terms of delivery of audit actions during the year. The rest of the report reflects on the performance of the internal audit service itself, so how we've delivered against our own performance indicators and in delivery of your audit plan. We've provided feedback on the completion of the plan. Those reports that have not been finalised at the time of producing the annual report will be presented to this committee once finalised, so you will have full oversight of those findings. And we've also provided the customer satisfaction survey results in table 5, which reflects on the value of the audit work and how well we're working with your officers in delivery of the audits. We've also reflected on our conformance with the public sector internal audit standards and giving you assurance that we are operating in conformance with those standards. We are currently awaiting the outcome of an international review of the Global Institute of Internal Audit Standards, and there may be implications from that for the standards we need to apply. So when we get the outcome of that, that will inform any external assessment work that we commission as well. So just the other thing I wanted to mention was that Appendix B to the report provides you with the executive summaries of the audit reports that have been finalised since March 2023. I'm mindful, of course, these didn't go to committee as part of previous progress reports. So for completeness, you have those key findings as well. So that was in relation to the financial system key controls and procurement compliance, which are detailed for you on pages 23 and 24 of the papers. So overall, this is for the committee to note and take as one of your key sources of assurance for this financial year of 22-23. And I'm happy to take questions from the committee on anything in particular. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions? Councillor Page, do you?
Thank you, Chairman. I did have, and I just have to find it. It's a very, very minor one. We are, first of all, Chairman, may I ask that in future the reports are numbered, because we don't have numbers on the reports anymore, because it just says 5, 6, and then it was the same as full council, which is very confusing. So if we could please have the reports numbered. Forget it, I'll come back.
Thank you. Well, no, I'm afraid you'll have to ask the question now, or we move on to the next item. Right.
I can't find it.
Okay. Sorry about that. So we can't deal with one item at a time. Recommendation. Okay. Oh, Councillor Johnson. Right. Okay.
It's working. Okay, on page 3, we've got sundry debt collection, and your point is that it's been adversely affected by staffing reductions, etc., etc. And what actions, what would you recommend at this point?
Really check?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, so we're currently implementing a new finance system, and I can provide some context. And if Carolyn and at the end would like to add some comments, and welcome. But we're implementing a new finance system, so there's been a bit of rationalisation in the team. That's been delayed a bit, so the performance has gone down a bit. Now, COVID has also impacted as well, so there was quite a considerable amount of debt, because if you remember, when we were going through COVID, we delayed some of our recovery. So there's quite a bit of catch up there. Now, the plan is once the finance system is in place, the resource will then be there to be able to do the catch up that's needed. So it's only a temporary issue. We don't expect it to be a long-term issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Can I have somebody to propose that we accept this internal annual report? No.
Yes, I'm happy to propose it, and thanks to Rachel for the comprehensive report as always.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Johnson. Those in favour? Carried. We move on to the right, okay. We move on to the internal audit progress and performance update 23-24. That's you.
For you, Chair, if that's okay?
Yes.
Yep. So once again, I'll give you a sort of a bit of a background to this, and then I'll hand over to our Chief Internal Auditor, Rachel Ashley-Corn. So basically, you've got a summary report at the front, which is asking members to receive the report and provide any comments. Basically, it addresses the performance issues of the service since the start of this financial year. And I do ask members to remember it is just this year and we're only into sort of the 4th month this year. So I think it might not look a lot's going on, but there's a lot of field work going on at this point in time and the reports will come to fruition later on. So at that point, I'll invite Rachel to go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Yes, so I'll just take members briefly through the report. So primarily what I wanted to achieve from bringing this to you today, as Clive said, we are fairly early in the financial year to be reporting on outcomes, but I'm mindful that this committee hasn't formally received the audit plan for 23-24. This was approved by the Audit and Standards Committee in March 2023. So I wanted to ensure that you had a full copy of the report of the plan that we're looking to deliver, and that's provided for you in the papers here. So page 32 onwards provides you with a full copy of the internal audit plan. And I think obviously this, as I say, it's the report that has been agreed with the audit committee. There has been one amendment to the audit plan since it was approved in March. This relates to the addition of the audit on homelessness and temporary accommodation, which is on page 33. And this was added into the audit plan to replace the planned audit on Section 106 agreements. Now, the Section 106 agreements audit, we were in the planning stages, and it became apparent that actually there's already quite a bit of work ongoing in this area and could result in some significant changes in the processes. As such, there is limited value in us auditing the current or past processes, and there'll be little for us to audit at the moment in terms of the new processes or to look at that going forward. So what we've proposed is that we will move that audit into the next financial year, and we'll be able to audit the embedding of any new processes and controls applied as following that review. And actually we think probably homelessness and temporary accommodation is a higher risk area this year, so we've put that into the audit plan, and this has been agreed with the chair of the audit committee and the section 151 officer under delegations. So otherwise, against each of the assignments, there's provided a status update for you in the column marked status in terms of the progress that's underway. You also have an indication of when we plan to start and end the audit, so that you can see what's planned for when and when you can expect to receive the outcomes at the Audit Standards Committee meetings. We do have one report currently that is at draft stage, and that was actually the biggest audit in terms of audit days for this year. So that's a nice one to have complete. So that one will be finalised in time for the next committee meeting. And that was on enforcement policy compliance, which is on page 34 of the papers. So you will also receive from me, as part of these progress reports, an update on the implementation of audit recommendations. So you will see on page 37 of the papers, table 3 of my report, an overview on implementation of those audit recommendations. So at the time of reporting, we had 10 audit recommendations which were overdue. 8 of those were of a low priority, and for the members' understanding, this low priority is assigned to actions where we don't consider there to be a risk posed, but it's more of a potential to improve efficiencies. So we don't tend to track those as closely or bring those to the committee's attention. We try to focus your attention as a committee on those of high and medium priority where we do have a risk exposed until that action is implemented. So we currently have 2 of those in the medium category, which are overdue, one over 3 months overdue and one under 3 months overdue. So what I'll do for these is provide you with full details, which you will find in the Appendix B on page 39 of the papers, which sets out all of the detail of that action and the latest officer update as well in the final column. And so that, Chair, is a quick run through of the report, and as I said, I'm happy to take any further questions.
Right, thank you very much, Rachel. Any questions for Rachel? Councillor Johnson.
You clarify for me, where is Appendix C? You referred to Appendix C. What do you mean B? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Page.
Yes, can I just ask a very basic one, page 34, to provide assurance over the council's enforcement activity? Do we include planning enforcement in that? Because it says private housing sector, entry out, enforcement officer training and guiding. So guidance, does that include planning?
Through you, Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I can confirm planning enforcement was included in the scope of the audit, yes.
Thank you. Right, thank you, Councillor Page. Thank you, Rachel. No other questions? No. Right. Now, somebody proposed that we receive. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nunn.
Under the temporary accommodation one, because it sends a follow-up audit out of the 23-24 plan, does that mean that the recommendations that came out of the previous audit will be taken into account when the new audit's undertaken and therefore almost are taken off the list of overdue actions?
Through you, Chair.
Yeah.
So we would always follow up on the actions from the previous audit, even if they'd already been closed, to make sure they'd been fully embedded and they were effective in doing what we wanted them to do in practice. Where we have an action that's still open, we wouldn't just close it because we're doing a new audit and reopen it, because I think that loses the transparency around the fact that the action was still open. So if we find, for example, that this one hasn't been implemented, it will continue to have the same implementation date. We won't be able to effectively reset it. But if we were to find that actually looking at it now, there's a different action which would be more fitting, or we need an amendment in some way, that may result in a new recommendation or a different action plan. But if it was the same action, we would leave this one open, so you would continue to track it in the same way.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Rachel. Right, you're quite happy with that. Right. Now, somebody proposed that we receive this report. Proposed, seconded. Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Proposed by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Those in favour of receiving this report? Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, we move on to the external audit annual report, the 122. Over to you, Clive.
Thank you, Chair. I seem to be doing all the introductions tonight. So shortly I'll hand over to Mark Surridge from Mazars, who's our external auditor. So what you have in front of you tonight is their annual report. So you can think of this like similar to the internal audit report you've had for 22-23. This is the annual report from the external auditors. Yeah, so basically it covers primarily the issues around financial statements, value for money arrangements and other reporting responsibilities. And it summarises what is on the next agenda item, which is basically around true and fair view of the accounts, and that we should see that opinion. But we've got good value for money arrangements covering the three areas that they cover. And then the other reporting responsibility items are primarily around the whole of government accounts. But I'll take this opportunity to hand over to Mark, and Mark can give you the details on the accounts to the annual report to the 31st of March 2022. Thank you.
Mark?
Thank you and good evening. So if I could take you to page 50 of the pack, which is it's page 4 of my report. Just sets out the introduction and the purpose of the auditor's annual report. Appreciate some of the member changes. So this report is the draft, or it stays draft until we issue the opinion on the financial statements, but fundamentally the work is there. My responsibilities as your external auditor are laid out statute, and there's a suite of guidance notes that underpin it, and a legal and regulatory framework. And we have three broad responsibilities. The first is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. There's a second paper coming up, so I don't intend to talk about that at this point in time. Our secondary responsibility is to look at underlying arrangements for value for money, and that's what the bulk of this report covers. We also, unique to local government, have wider reporting responsibilities in engaging with the National Audit Office, but also being open to electors and electors' rights in inspecting the accounts and asking the auditors questions. I can confirm there's been no need to exercise any of those powers this year. If I can next take you to page 55 of the pack, section 3. This section gives you the background and the approach to what we do. And our requirements are to look at the underlying arrangements for securing economy, efficiency and effectiveness. Now, that's quite long-winded, but essentially it means looking at 3 particular areas of how the council operates. We look at financial sustainability and how the council plans and manages its funds, its resources, including people, in order to deliver services. We look at governance and how the council ensures that it makes properly informed decisions and risk management. And lastly, we look at how the council uses information about cost and performance to manage and deliver services through its performance management framework. The work flows through various stages and culminates with this report. Where we believe there's an area to essentially poke a little bit further, we have the ability to do that where we feel necessary. For the year under review, 31st of March 2022, I can confirm there was no need to look any further. And ultimately, across all of those areas, we're satisfied the council does have proper arrangements in place. And the rest of the commentary really delves into the detail of the arrangements we looked at and why we believe they are appropriate. But if I take you to page 56, this is probably the best page to really summarise it up. There's a table here. And if yours is in colour like mine is, then that's a lot easier to look at. But if it's not, I can tell you it's all green, and green means good. It means there's no issues that we're reporting around that. There was an issue that we looked at in the previous year, in 2020-21. We reported on that well over 12 months ago. And as part of our work, we ensured that any issues on that work did not materialise in the current year. And we're satisfied that the previous issue had been resolved. That's where I would pause and take any questions, really.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? No? Okay. Right, thank you much. Now somebody proposed that we receive the, I'm coming to that now. Sorry, I'll start that again. There is a change on the written documents to the date for the recommendation. It says in my documents to second. Stop halfway through them. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Right, my misunderstanding there. My apologies. Right, any comments at this stage of the report? Yes.
It's my first time on the audit committee, and thank you, Chairman. I think this is a very good opportunity, not only to thank everybody, but I think it has made very, very good reading. And I'm really, really pleased as a member to read right through the reports that the auditors are satisfied and there are no significant weaknesses within the council, and that the council ensures that it makes informed decision and properly manages risks. And I think that is something we should highlight, because it not only assures us as councillors, but it should assure the general public.
Thank you very much, Councillor Page. Sorry, for pressing me halfway through. Yeah,
so these parts of the report go into the detail around aspects of financial sustainability, governance, and improving economy efficiency and effectiveness. And essentially, there's a summary that talks about the extent and depth of work that we've performed, looking at the financial plans, budget setting, budgetary control, to assure ourselves and therefore council, as you say, through this committee and then ultimately to the taxpayer that we are satisfied in the arrangements. We use quite a lot of double negatives about there not being a risk, etc. Because ultimately this is a clean report that runs through. Briefly, page 61 goes into the more detail about the issue that was that we reported in April of 2022, confirming that we'd followed that up and we were satisfied that there was no evidence of continuance of that issue. And it covers other aspects around governance, etc., which also includes observations of how this committee operates during the year. I think I would end my cover of the report at that point, because I think it's a positive assurance for the authority.
Thank you very much, Mark. Are there any questions on Mark's comments? On the written papers, I don't know whether it's been updated, on the recommendations, there is a mistake on the date. It should say through Steve, the external audit for 2021-22, not 22-23, which is what it says in mine. So thank you, Mark, for that. And with that amendment, can I have somebody propose that we accept this report? Councillor Nunn, the proposals? Councillor Johnson, second. Those in favour? Carried. On to the approval of the 21-22 annual governance annual financial report. Thank you. Okay, would you like to start, Karen?
Through you, Chair.
Yes, please.
So this is the big agenda item. So what we're doing here is primarily asking the members to approve the accounts and the annual governance statement. Now, recognise a few things here that we are looking at the accounts and the annual governance statement of the previous administration. That is just the way it is, that you can reflect, and but unfortunately that is the process. We just have to follow it through. Second thing is everybody from the officer side recognises you're not experts on governance, you're not experts on governance statements, on accounts. You are to be critical friends and review accordingly. And hopefully you came to the training that was held by SITFA earlier, or you've seen the training video, that you would have been able to sort of understand the context of the accounts a little further. So what we are in a bit of a strange position here, Harborough, but nothing like the position of many other local authorities in the country. We are asking you in the recommendation this time to approve these accounts subject to a delegation to the chairman of the committee and myself. There is one outstanding issue in respect of the accounts, in respect of the pensions, which I think I've briefed you on by emails in the past. And in due course, Mark can elaborate further. So in this situation, what the standard process is that we bring the accounts to you, and you can comment on them and reflect on them and ask any questions you wish, and you accept them as they stand, subject to this delegation. And what will happen is, in due course, when Mark receives confirmation from the auditors of the pension fund that the number is the number from their point of view, and we might have to make some adjustments. It's purely non-cash, so any impact will not impact on our cash reserves. It will impact on the non-cash reserves, so there's no direct impact on our financial performance. Mark will then, we may have to restate the accounts to do that. Mark will review those and then say, you've got an unqualified opinion. We can sign the accounts finally on. And that is the usual process to deal with this. Otherwise, we just keep going through, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until this happens. We're hoping, touch wood, he says, that we will get that decision sometime October, November time. If we're lucky, it could be September. So basically, there is a process that we have to follow. So first of all, I will ask Mark in a few minutes to present you the audit completion report, which I'll ask you to accept. Then after that, there's the annual governance statement. Then there's a draft letter of representation, which is a technical issue, which is also in the audit completion report, but you have to accept that as the wording, and basically that allows me to sign it off that the accounts have been presented in the right way, and I haven't done anything untoward or messed around with anything. And Mark will review that and appropriately accept that, and then of course we get to the accounts themselves. That's okay. So we'll take it sort of a bit of a step at a time, if that's right. Thank you very much. So without further ado, I'll ask Mark if that's okay to sort of present what is seen as Appendix 1 to the papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I appreciate this is some 32 pages of probably the most complex report that we produce as your external auditors, and there's a lot of jargon in here. The first thing I'll say is that ultimately this report, I believe, gives you as a committee assurance that it is there's no reason to stop you from adopting the financial statements as they are with the delegation, because we've carried out our work with the appropriate rigour to the appropriate quality standards that you should expect, leading to what we call, and again, a terrible jargon, an unqualified, unmodified opinion. That basically means a clean opinion on the financial statements, which that's where you want to be. You don't want a qualified opinion. You don't want a modified opinion. In terms of status of the audit, which is at page 82 of your pack, as Clive's alluded to, but the audit is always ongoing until you actually sign pen to paper. So we have two items, and one of those sits around the pension scheme assets and liabilities. They won't affect pensioners. They won't affect officers of the council. They won't affect any of the payments or none of the cash, etc. Essentially, it's a matter of ensuring the financial the balance sheet reflects the latest information. And this is an issue that is sector wide. So all local authorities have found themselves in this position. Around 250, 260 local authorities have found themselves in this position. It's just a matter of timing. That's all. And the rationale that sits behind it is essentially that pensions are really, really complicated. Lots and lots of things that have to go in to work out what the value of an asset is and what a liability is. Things like mortality rates and inflation, interest rates. So many things that go into that. And what the pension fund does is every 3 years it kind of does a really, really deep dive and update of its position statement. And it was done in 2019, and they do it every 3 years. And all that's happening is that because we know they've got more detailed, more up-to-date information, we know the figures have changed, so they just need to be reflected in the financial statements. Now, it's just quite a long process that goes into that. So the authority has to write to the pension fund and get the actuary to tell them what the new numbers are. We can't just take those numbers at face value because we have to do an audit, and we have to write to the auditor of the pension fund to make sure we know that the essentially machine that cranks everything out is working effectively. So it's quite a long loop that goes around, and ultimately the numbers will come through and we'll do the checking around that. In terms of the work we do, again, I appreciate it's quite a lot in here, but if I take you to section 4 of our report. We do a risk-based approach. And as part of that risk-based approach, we really think about focusing on the areas which are most likely at risk of going wrong. And there are 3 areas, and for this council, I call them actually fairly standard. So in terms of risk context, this council is not out of sync with what we would see as a typical district council, and that's important because it says there's nothing particularly unusual. You're not high risk in terms of these things. The first area that we look at is something that's called a mandatory risk on every audit, everywhere globally, that management are in a unique position that if they wanted to, they could override controls and make the numbers what they would like them to be. So we perform specific tests to address that using a combination of computer-aided techniques and auditor judgment to really drill into that. And we have concluded that there are no matters to bring to your attention. So that's an important part. The second area on page 88 of your report is the pension liability. I've mentioned already, it is incredibly complex, requires a lot of work that needs to go into that. And we just need to get through the final stages in order to get to the outcome of that position. Page 89 of the pack is the third area. It's the valuation of land and buildings. Again, very complex, requires the use of valuation experts to come up with the numbers and drill and work them through. There's judgments, there's estimates that need to go into that. So we've tested the underlying judgments, we've tested the underlying transactions and property records, etc., and concluded that we've obtained the work we need and we're satisfied there's no issues to really bring to your attention. There's other aspects of our work covered in here. The other piece that I bring to your attention is page 93 of the pack, internal controls. So it is not our responsibility to look at your internal controls, but if something would come to our attention that we think merits review or raising a recommendation that management should act, they would appear here. And as you can see, there are none that we need to bring to your attention. So again, a positive result for the authority. Section 6, which starts on page 95 of the pack. Through the work we do, obviously, we can't look at every single transaction, so we apply a concept called materiality. And if we find something that's over £25,000, then we would report that to you. They might be adjusted for, or they might be unadjusted for, but we bring those to your attention. In the unadjusted misstatements, there is an extrapolation report of about £265,000 where management have proposed not to adjust for that. I'm satisfied that that is reasonable. That is reasonable approach for what it is. The effect will wash out, and in reality has no impact overall. Page 96 sets out the main adjustments through the financial statements. Whilst they're set out here, I suppose I'll give you some context. The fact that this fits in just a handful of sentences is actually a good result. There are many councils we work with where this does sprawl over several pages. And what that says to me is that if you stand back and have a look at the quality of the financial statements as a whole and the compilation of them, then we are satisfied, and we never say anything better than adequate, by the way. We are satisfied that there's an adequate arrangements for the compilation of the financial statements and getting us into this point. I won't touch on section 7 of the report because I've already spoken about that, but then we get into the appendices. The only thing I would say about the appendices is that Appendix C talks about independence, and the important thing about that is obviously we're appointed externally and independently from the council. We run independence checks to make sure that there's nothing that would impair our objectivity over doing our work. And we do that up until the date of signing the opinion. There is nothing that's come as a result that would impair that independence and objectivity, and therefore assurance to you as a committee. And again, I'm happy to pause at that point and take any questions.
Are there any questions from Mark at this point? Right, free to move on. Oh, right, yeah.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
So at Appendix 2, we have the annual governance statement. So this is we may call it the twin of the accounts. So the accounts look at the numbers. This looks at the process of governance, and it talks about how the authority considers it has good governance. The primary item I always look for in here is the internal audit statement and what the opinion of internal audit is. That's the big food, and of course we had a satisfactory internal audit opinion on there. But for internal audit for that year, you will see that it will, in due course, the final one will be signed by the then leader and by the interim chief exec at that point, and that is just a process because of the financial years it falls into. Not anything more for me to really draw your attention to on that point, really. Sharon, thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much, Clive. Okay, are there any questions for Clive, Mark, at this stage?
Well, Appendix 3, so it's lost the appendix number at the top, is page 119. Okay, so this is the letter of representation and is actually one of the appendices that is in Mark's paper. And when we get to the delegation process, I will actually sign this and forward it to Mark, and it gives him his reassurance that I personally am responsible and take account of those various headings that are within there. Basically, that I have not fettered external audit on their work. I have allowed the finance team to do their work, and that it represents fairly the accounts. So, if any members have any comments about that section, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions at this point for Clive? People want a little more time? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and then the last oh no, sorry.
Councillor Johnson.
As a matter of interest, I mean, there must be a cut-off point for when you're no longer inspecting stuff. What is the actual date? Do you have an actual date for that? I mean, not year, an actual date.
Sorry. So what? How do you mean cut-off point?
Yeah, you know, this letter is being prepared, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, if a matter, if something suddenly went badly wrong.
Oh, right. Okay.
I mean, is it close to the date or what happens?
Look, let me explain that, and if I don't explain it very well, I'm sure Mark can talk. Until the accounts are actually signed off, the accounts are open, and things could change. Okay, hence why we're talking about it now. And there's that delegation in place, so we can make the change if there needs to be a change in respect to pensions. But I'm giving you the assurance: the cash balances and the cash backed reserves are not impacted. So in the statements that we'll see in a minute, they're solid. They are always the key ones with my 151 hat on. The non-cash ones, which sound really odd, but we have to do them because of their balancing items effectively, they can move. And that's potentially the risk that could happen. It could move if the pensions numbers are slightly different. But that's this movement thing. Now, the process will be, we will get that report. If we have to make that change, we will make the change. Those updated accounts will go to Mark and his team. Mark will do what they need to do and satisfy themselves. Mark will then tell me, and I will then produce this letter of representation and sign that off and then send it back to Mark. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. Okay, so Appendix 4 is the actual accounts. And there is a huge debate in local government financial circles at the minute about the understandability of them to lay people. Okay, and sort of 10 or so years ago, local authorities moved through something called International Financial Reporting Standards, and they have a commercial lilt to them, so accounts are meant to be comparable with the private sector, but that is true in some respects. Now, I hope you have had a read of it. It goes into infinite details on different things. Those who came to the training will understand how some of the numbers, if you were trying to look at the outturn reports that went to Cabinet, may not be exactly the same number, but there is a full reconciliation that does that. To yourselves, the narrative report is the key document that explains in summarised form how the accounts work. So at this point, I'll cease talking and see if members have any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Any questions for Clive at this point?
And it's not a question, but it's just to say that I think the narrative report does clear up all the figures that for those of us that are lay people just would bamboozle us. No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, I mean, if you're happy with the accounts, is there any comment, Mark, you would like to make at this point?
I would say, I'd reiterate my first point that I made, that, the outcome of our work and our work is complete. It is complete apart from the pensions. It says that I don't believe there's any reason why you can't adopt these accounts. We're satisfied with the accounting policies, the application of them, the way the authority runs things through. And I should also say that we do get good positive support from the authority in order to do the work that we need to do. And that's all I would say.
Thank you very much, Mark. I would just like to take this opportunity to personally thank Carolyn and her team who work so hard to produce this good set of accounts. And so I'd personally like to thank Carolyn and her team for that. So thank you.
I'd like to add to that my thanks to all the officers. I mean, it's an enormous amount of work, very complicated, and they seem to have done a very good job. I don't prejudice any decisions. Okay, so if I've got this correct at this point, right, that we are asked to receive the audit completion report from the external auditor and comment as they consider necessary, to receive the 2021-22 annual governance statement duly signed by the leader of the council and interim chief executive, to note the draft letter of representation as authorised by the interim deputy chief executive, and to approve the 21-22 annual financial report and give delegated powers to the chairman of the Audit and Standards Committee and interim deputy chief executive to authorise and sign the AFR on the behalf of the council, subject to the auditors confirming an unqualified opinion on the AFR. Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yep, happy to propose acceptance of these, and very pleased to see that, not being political, but the previous administration maintained healthy finances, and it's a great report. Thank you very much to the team, to the external auditors for their exemplary work on this, and I'm very happy to propose your movement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a second for that. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, it was.
I'll second that, and I also would like to say how useful the glossary of terms was. I haven't seen that before. I don't think we've had it before, but yes, I found it useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. Those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, that's a slight step up from taking away and adding up at the parent level. Yes, again, does anybody wish to raise any urgent business at this stage? Oh, well, you never know. We would judge whether it was urgent or not. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, and a particular thank you again to the officers and the auditors. Okay, we'll see you in November, I think.